Hi, Yunnie. How are you? Welcome to the Retail Horror Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful. It's funny because I started this podcast because when we were doing lives and you joined me live during full shutdown at that point, and it was so great. And you are part of the reason why I decided, it was so great. We had such great responses. People were asking for more. I'm like, I'm just doing the podcast. So it's really nice to have you on the podcast now with me for reals.
Well, the fact that I was a small part inspiring that makes me even more excited to be here.
I'm super grateful. You and I have a history from back in the day at Fred Segal. I just interviewed Janine the other day, and the first thing I asked her was, before we get into what you're doing now, how did you end up at Fred Segal?
Well, I always say that we're all 6 degrees of separation of Fred Segal, because I feel like people from every walk of life, I've met lawyers, I've met actors, I've met dog trainers, and they've all worked at Fred Segal at one time or another. And I have that similar story where I was in high school and I wanted a part-time job. So I started off as doing retail sales and really just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the store. I mean, it was also a great time. It was a really great time to be at Fred Segal. It was, the 90s.
Yes.
And yeah, that's how I ended up there.
Whose store did you end up at?
So the first store I worked at was Fred Segal Fun, and I was working for Jackie Brander and Christy Warren. And they were just such great mentors. Jackie had opened her store, I think, when she was 20. Mm-hmm. And so it was very aspirational to be around somebody who was a young entrepreneur. And she was really generous with her wisdom and really took me under her wing and taught me everything about every aspect of the retail business, the buying, the merchandising, and I really fell in love with it because of, Jackie's influence.
She was so good. I still just remember her store was packed, and it was packed with such good lines, and they were all so wearable. And so like the beginning of athleisure, it's the best lines. I just still remember going in there and just because I got to merchandise for a little bit, but I spent more money there than I made there. Which I think
for sure I did 100%, because I was there for the Juicy Couture jumpsuit era.
Oh my God. I totally forgot about Juicy.
I mean, that was a moment. A moment. Talk about athleisure exploding. And it was every single fabric. It was velour. It was the terry cloth. I think I had them in every color.
Oh my gosh. I just blew my mind. I completely forgotten about the Juicy Couture moment. And it wasn't even a moment. I mean, it was I still remember the pair that said juicy on the ass.
Oh yeah. You're right. It wasn't a moment. It was an era. It really was. The Juicy Couture with the trucker hat and the platform flip-flops, what were they called? Rocket dogs. Oh. I mean, it just, and so much of that is back in style now, which is, exciting and frightening all at the same time.
As long as neon doesn't come back, I'm good with it, with all that.
I hate to break it to you, but I think it is. So just brace yourself.
Every year they try and bring it back, and I've yet to see it really break through. I just came back from Magic and it was there, but I still haven't, thankfully, touch wood, have not seen it come back full force where it's everywhere. And I'm going to pray to God it doesn't. At what point? Because you had owned, was it several stores? Or I knew you owned, you bought Fred Segal Couture. Right. How after did you transition from Jackie and Christy right into that? Or did you take a break in between?
So I worked for Jackie and Christy, and I was also doing part-time styling. And I was trying to figure out if I wanted to take that route and be a stylist, or if I wanted to be a store owner. And So I was doing both part-time. And while I was working at Fred Segal, one thing I will say was that I worked harder than anybody else there. And Fred noticed. And I remember, and I don't know if you, of course you remember, when Fred would walk through the store, you know, everyone's on pins and needles and kind of intimidated by him because he was an intimidating guy. And I'll never forget, he stopped me and he said, "You are always working your butt off. You are one of the hardest working people." And he noticed. And so I didn't really think anything of it until a few months had passed and an opportunity for to own a store there came up. And when I say store, it was really a 75 square foot counter. And I was 19 years old.
Oh my God. Wow.
Not even old enough to buy a 6-pack of beer. And Fred came up to me and he said, "You need to own a store here. There's an opportunity here." And you know how there wasn't even like a, let's sit down and have a meeting. This was like standing on the sales floor. He said, "You need to own a store here. And there's an opportunity here. And I think you should do it." And he brought Stephen Pascal over to me, who were the current owners. And he said, "This is the girl you should sell it to. She's one of the hardest working people here." And that's basically kind of how the deal went down. And so I bought my first store there, which was the hair accessory counter, which at that time was velvet scrunchies and like Bridget Bardot style, very thick headbands,
which are huge,
which are huge, really elegant, beautiful quality, $40 scrunchies. But that was it. There wasn't much of a selection. And I think I just had a little bit of luck on my side, because I think to the day that I took over was the explosion of the hair accessories. I mean, literally the day I took over, it was like every week hair accessories were on the cover of Time magazine. It was an explosion. It was the butterflies and the rhinestone movement.
Yeah.
And that was when, you know, things just really took off. And I think my first year in business, I reached, you know, several hundreds of thousands of dollars over what they had done previous years, and reached almost $1 million in sales.
Oh my God, that's insane. I had no idea. I mean, I still remember that little counter, and it's like, to do those numbers in that 75-foot counter is, I'm sorry, it's fucking insane. Like, that's amazing.
It was insane. It was insane.
No idea. Wow.
Well, because that was also back in the days of when stylists used to shop at retail stores.
Yeah.
So we would have TV shows like Buffy and the Vampire Slayer coming in because their studio was right around the corner, and they would buy 6s of everything for stunt doubles. And so we were having, I mean, it was insane. I was 19 years old, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even go to college, and I had this booming business. Wow. But I did have the wherewithal to then use the money that I made to expand and buy another business. And that's how I ended up getting into the jewelry business, and then eventually into women's ready-to-wear with couture.
Wow, that is amazing. It's funny because I'm talking to a store in Panama, and they're doing couture, and you know, it's like Gucci and Chloe, and you know, it's interesting because they're looking for a merchandiser, because they're used to buying franchises like Valencia, and they all come with, here's your specs, somebody else comes and merchandise it. They really don't do anything, and all of a sudden they're opening a store of multi luxury brands. So first thing I thought about was Pascal's store. I'm like, and your store. And I'm like, God, it was just so well done and so well curated. And that was like the days of Dolce, like the explosion of Dolce Gabbana. And those days in the 90s, it's like, talk about excess. It's like, I think about that, and it was like, hands down, the best memories from that time. And especially the time all of us had at Fred Segal.
I feel so fortunate, honestly, Michelle. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. That really means the world, because I took it so seriously, just merchandising the store and how we curated it. But I just feel so fortunate that I was a part of the fashion industry at that time, because it's very different now. You know, sitting front row at a lot of these shows are all influencers. And, you know, it was a different time. It was when you had to wait for Vogue magazine to actually come out and see the print to see what was on the runway. And it was really exciting, and it will never be like that again. So I just feel so lucky that I was a part of that.
Yeah, I agree. And it, you know, even like when Janine and I talked the other day, it's like I said to her, I'm like, you know, even though I went down in like flames, like, but hands down, the best experience and the best lessons I've ever had that I still carry forward. But when I think about like all of us in that bubble of Fred Segal and all of the celebrities we work with, and like just how honored, like, you know, you talking about the stylist coming in, it's like, what I still vividly remember is we'd get Stussy, and then, you know, we'd have all of the denim buyers from whatever, your denim designers from whatever brand, like, give me your top sellers. And you're like stacking up like 50 pairs of jeans, and like the Japanese that would come in and like, I'll take that entire stack of Stussy. I mean, it's like that term stack it high and watch it fly is still, I still think about that from that era. Cause it's like, no one does that now. I mean, it just not, I don't think it's ever going to be the same.
It will never be the same. And I don't know that it should,
No.
because it's, you know, going back to what you said earlier with the excess. And I think of, you know, selling Dolce & Gabbana wife beater tank tops, which I don't even know that you're allowed to call them that anymore. But that is what they were referred to. And they were $375 a piece for a white, gray, and black tank top. And I just remember selling, you know, give me 6 white, give me 12 black. I mean, it was
like,
insane.
And I will say though, it was the sexiest tank top, and with a pair of beat down 501s. And
that's all it took. That's
yep.
the red line Levi's, and you know that, and you were set.
And still to this day, I think that style still carries through. So, so bring all of us fast forward to tell us about yourself and your brand, KimChiAvocado.
Well, after being in fashion for 17 great years, I went into the food business as a restaurateur, and I had some success doing that. So I was able to parlay that into a different area of the food business, and I started creating digital content, which it turned out I enjoyed a lot more than running a restaurant. And so I'm very lucky that my husband is an operations genius, and he was able to really take on the whole restaurant group without me by his side anymore. And I still check in every now and again, and I'm involved with marketing, but I really stepped away to pursue more digital food content. And from there, I developed a boards business, which, as you've seen, is everything from candy to charcuterie. And it's just fun. I'm having a lot of fun developing recipes, creating the content, inspiring other people to cook, which is really the foundation of KimChiAvocado, is wanting to inspire people to get in the kitchen and connect with people that they love through food.
Because you are, I mean, your parents came here as immigrants, and they started from scratch, and they ended up opening, was it a fish market on Santa Monica Pier, which is now the Albright?
Yes. So both of my parents are immigrants, and but they both have had a real appreciation for good food and serving people. Like, that's something that's both come very naturally to them. So it's no surprise to me that they decided to go into the food business. But my father opened up a fish market on Santa Monica Pier. And the way that they were able to pivot into food was that my grandmother would make shrimp tempura, and people would line up around the pier for my grandmother's fried shrimp. And so then that led to fish and chips. And then from fish and chips, they started making, burgers, and then it slowly turned from a fish market into what you see today, a restaurant.
I say this every time, like I still have yet to come down there. It's an iconic location. It's like an iconic restaurant. And I love the story that it started with your parents, and now your husband runs it now, correct? Is that part of the restaurant group?
It is. So what happened was my husband's in finance and really actually knows nothing about food. He burns toast. I mean, you hear about these people and you don't think it actually is possible, but he just really despises making food. He enjoys eating it. But one thing he really does understand is operations. And when my father had passed away and my mother was running the restaurant on her own, she said, I'd really love for you to take over the restaurant. And if you've grown up in the restaurant business, you just know you want to run the other way. Like you kind of have to hate yourself a little bit to choose to be in this business, because it's just so hard. You work holidays, it's 365 days a year. And I said, no, I really don't want to do that. And Greg said, this is really not about you. This is about preserving a legacy. And this is our hometown. This is something your father started. We need to do this.
Oh my God.
And yeah. And, thankfully, my 17 years in fashion really prepared me to be able to do something like this. My experience with service, I mean, it wasn't with food, but service industry is service industry, and marketing and building a brand that was, kind of all in my wheelhouse. So with Greg's expertise with finance, we kind of merged together and we were able to make lemonade out of lemons, because it was not an easy time at the restaurant at that point. So
I mean, you were already wearing so many hats and like already had, and but I love the philosophy of keeping that alive. And it's, like I said, it's an iconic restaurant, and, the fact that that's within your lineage, it's like, it's so important to keep that. And I'm so glad that he talked you into it.
Well, he's just all about, and you haven't met him, but
I feel like I know him from watching your Instagram. And the fact that he's a Dogtown guy, like, I mean, like just from my ex. So it's like, I still, for some reason, I feel like I know him just from that.
Well, it's funny that you brought up the Dogtown thing. That's another area of a legacy business, and really protecting a legacy business, that he got involved, because it's been around way longer than we've been alive, and that's just one of those legacy brands that we both grew up with, and he wanted to get involved, and he became a partner in the brand. And it's just those things are important to him. He's got a lot of heart, and I'm so grateful, because here we are, 10 years into the restaurant business and living through a pandemic, and we really didn't know if our restaurants were going to survive. And I'm able to walk into our restaurant and just kind of close my eyes and put my hands together with such a grateful heart. Like, oh my gosh, we made it.
I have to say, because I mean, I'm all over the board right now with you, but in watching your Instagram and watching, because you guys as a family, one thing I can say, it's like, I think is so beautiful. You guys are really involved in the community. And I know your husband at that point, I think, was still with the city council, but how you guys during the pandemic were, the Black Lives Matter walk, or that went through Santa Monica, like you guys were down there working, and then you guys have really been involved in the community, which I think is like so stellar, because you don't see that all the time. And it's clear that that's important to your family and your husband.
I'm so happy that comes through on my social
100%.
media feed, because that is a part of our ethos, whether that's the restaurant or KimChiAvocado. Community is a huge part of our identity. And if it's not serving our community in a positive, meaningful way, it's just not something I want to be involved in, because as as we evolve and as we grow as entrepreneurs, it's like, it can't just really be about the money. It has to have, it has to fulfill something a lot greater than just the paycheck. So for us, that's community is one of them. And I'm really happy that that comes through.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one, I adore you and I love watching your food because because between your boards and your foods, the amount of saved screenshots I have from your website, it's hilarious. And it's like, I have thousands of pictures on my phone because of work. And I'm, you made some dressing and I was like, okay, I got to find the dress. I'm literally scrolling thousands of photos to find a goddamn, you need to do a cookbook. If you're not working on one already, you really need to do a cookbook, because between your bowls in the morning for your boys, for your waffles, your Sunday breakfast with your family, but your food is so, it's so beautiful and it's so vibrant and it's just so California to me. And it's like, I'm not joking with you how many screenshots I have.
Oh my gosh, that's the biggest compliment ever. I mean, yeah, that's where the avocado and the kimchi comes in, is that at the end of the day, I am Korean by ethnicity. Both of my parents are Korean, but I'm a California girl. And that this is where I was born and raised. And it's just as much a part of the food that I crave, the way that I dress, the way that my home is decorated. It's very California. So yes, our food is either Korean influenced or California influence, which is basically like tacos to me, in my opinion.
It's like literally like, it's funny because like there's a few food bloggers that I follow, but I think I pull more. And I know, because when I did this interview with you live, so many people were asking me like, what was her website again? What was it? And I'll scroll through and I'll see people that I know watched it is like, so-and-so like this. I'm like, oh, I love that. Like, it's like, it's so beautifully done. And it's so like, it looks very natural and it's not over finesse. It's not over, but it's like, you really need to do a cookbook if you're not working on one already.
That is my dream. And I have a product that I am going to launch hopefully by the end of this year. I can't totally say what it is yet, but it is very KimChiAvocado and I'm very excited about it. But once we've launched that product, then I want to focus on a book. That is definitely on my bucket list.
You really need to. So talk to me about how the boards came about, because okay, number one, your Valentine cookies with Biggie Smalls. Okay. I got this for Dave last year. I was like, almost felt guilty about eating, but like, talk to me about how that started, because it's kind of blown up. And I mean, during COVID, you were doing the little boxed charcuteries, and then I was watching the candy boards go out, and then Valentine's. Like, did it start with like one little thing, and was it like for a friend? Like, how did that go? And I'm sorry if you're going to start hearing my insane dogs in a second.
You know what this is? I think we all learned from our Instagram lives when we were all in quarantine that we're all just living life and we prefer the realness of the dogs barking and the people coming in and out. So it's all good with me. It happened by accident. So when I launched KimChiAvocado, it was all really because one of my dearest friends, who is one of the top photographers in the world. I'm talking like shooting covers for Harper's Bazaar, and
I love his Instagram.
His Instagram's amazing. He's amazing. It was really his belief in me that gave me the confidence to launch KimChiAvocado. And he told me, I'm going to shoot your food. This is something you really need to do. And it was really his faith in me that launched the brand. And so initially what we were doing was sharing recipes, creating digital content, and the boards was just a little side piece, because I would I would create boards for content. And then people would always comment, why can't we buy the boards? Why don't you sell the boards? And so I would do every now and again some grazing table installations, which I had done before when I was doing catering. And then it really turned a corner when COVID hit, because we were so limited in ways to celebrate, because life was still happening. People were still having birthdays, people were graduating, but there was no way for us to celebrate because everything was closed. And so people were asking if there were COVID safe ways for them to, enjoy having an outdoor graduation party. And so that's when we really started making individual servings of charcuterie or the candy boards to make people, feel excited about turning 50 and not having a party. And it was honestly, Michelle, like the messages I would get or the videos people would send when, to show people's faces when they receive these boards, it really inspired me to keep it going, because
they're so good. I mean, it's not instant gratification, but it's the gratification of, especially during that time.
Exactly. Especially during that time, I was like, all I wanted to do was deliver joy. And so, the food content was great because everyone was at home cooking. So I was able to do the food videos and feel really great about that. But this was delivering a different kind of joy. And I fell in love with doing it. I have an amazing team of women that I get to work with. And every holiday it's like merchandising a store. I'm sure you get really excited about the holidays, like, oh my gosh, okay, Valentine's Day is coming, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So it allows us to really nerd out on holidays, which is is kind of my thing. It always has been.
Me too.
And yeah, so then basically from COVID was born the boards business, and it's been a really, really incredible journey building this part of the business and the team.
Do you have a separate, you're not building this in your home, are you? Do you have a separate commercial kitchen, or are you?
I do. So we are right now in construction on a studio space in Santa Monica, and it's 2 storefronts. So one side is going to be the to-go commissary kitchen for the Albright. And
amazing.
Yes. And then the other side is going to be where we film content. So I'll have my kitchen in there. And we'll also be hosting workshops, which I'm super excited about.
Oh my God. Okay, we'll have to make sure we'll have you'll have to give us, I think Elise has already reached out and asked for any links and stuff like that, but I think that people are for sure going to be jumping on that one. I know I will be.
Well, I can't wait to actually invite everyone into our world and see our candy studio and build candy boards and hop on over next door and grab a lobster roll, because the kitchen's going to be right there.
So excited. Part of because from working down in Santa Monica, not so much the Fred Segal days, but from my time on Thursday Promenade between Z Gallery and Anthropology, like my level of angst about parking near that area is like all-time high. And it's like, I want to go down to that restaurant, but I'm like, I can't even handle with the traffic. And especially now that, especially when it's high season. So it's nice to know that you're going to be on a street side. So I don't have to like park, walk, schlep down to the pier.
I share that anxiety with you. It is just, they've made it impossible on weekends for you to even get down there in a car. So that is one of the reasons why we are building this commissary, because it was just getting too hard for Uber drivers and Postmates to come pick up to-go orders. So we actually couldn't do to-go orders on the weekends. And then during quarantine, when all of the restaurants were only able to do delivery, we were the only restaurant that wasn't able to do that. So we were just closed for almost a year. Yeah. Without doing any to-go business, just 100% lights out. So
Wow.
this will allow us to, I mean, hopefully we'll never get back into the situation like we were in 2020, but this will give us a lot more opportunity to grow our business in other ways that we're not able to do down on the Santa Monica Pier.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I have to ask you, name 5, this is a total random question, but because you're a foodie, 5 of your favorite items, because I watch your same thing, Instagram, I watch your hauls between Costco and the farmers market. So 5 of your favorite products from either any of those places, and your favorite farmers market. I think I know it, but your favorite farmers market.
You know it. Okay, so I'm going to start with my favorite farmers market. It's a tie between 2. What's always going to be near and dear to my heart is the Santa Monica Wednesday Farmers Market. It's where I've been going since I was a little girl. My grandmother used to take me there, and I really love that one. Plus, that's where Harry's Berries is. And, you know, I'm just a sucker for a $20 basket of amazing strawberries. My second favorite farmer's market is Mar Vista, because it's by my house. They have amazing prepared food. I mean, we go Sunday morning. That's usually where we'll eat breakfast, and we'll just hit up every single stand eating arepas, the mini Dutch pancakes. It's just amazing. So I can walk there. That's the other thing that makes me really, really love it. So, so those are my 2 top favorite farmers markets. And then my top favorite 5 products. If you've watched my stories, you probably know this. So I had an unhealthy obsession with this French yogurt at the Brentwood Farmers Market, to the point where I wanted to miss my son's baseball game because I wasn't going to be able to get my yogurt. And when I said I was going to call Mike, my husband was like, "Who's Mike?" I was like, "The yogurt guy." He was like, "You have his phone number?" He's like, "This is weird." But it's called Bonjour yogurt, and there's other yogurts like it, like the Eris, but there's something about the Bonjour flavors and the consistency that is just incredible. Plus, it's filled with probiotics. So if you eat a spoonful before you go to bed, it just makes you feel like you had dessert, and it's also working into your microbiome, and it's amazing. My second favorite product is from the Pickle Guy. And I think that's also very apparent if you watched my stories, because it's like my kimchi.
Culver City one.
So he's all over, and he actually sells online. I think his handle the name is the Pickle Guy. And he has everything from, so those are your prebiotics. So you get your probiotics from the yogurt, the prebiotics from all of the pickled stuff. That he has something called Cali Kraut, which is sauerkraut with turmeric in it, and I put it on my rice bowls. I put it on my wraps. I literally wish I could carry it in my purse, because sometimes I'm at restaurants, I'm like, this is just, it's missing something. It's missing the kraut. I need the Pickle Guy. So I would say that's my second favorite. And then another one of my guilty pleasures is Erewhon. And
oh God, I know.
I mean, it doesn't feel good to walk out of there spending $200 on one bag of groceries. It's just wrong. But
I've walked out $200 with 4 items. 4.
Oh,
because I get sucked into the personal care and the CBD.
Oh, yeah.
Like the vitamin I mean, I'm really gonna call myself out of this. I bought one of their bath salts, a single use bath salt. And I have to make sure my husband's nowhere near when I'm saying it. It was fucking $47. It was the best bath I've ever had in my life, but $47 for one bath.
Yeah,
I can't even
believe it. I believe it. There is 2 things there that they don't sell anymore. One of them is Cobb's. They are chocolate peanut butter cups that are completely clean ingredients. It's made with sustainable packaging. It's just the most delightful, delicious thing you'll ever eat. And I'm so sad. They're a small business and they just closed down. And I have 2 left in my refrigerator, and I'm kind of like holding on to them because I'm sad that those are going to be the last 2 I ever eat. So I'm sorry for sharing something that's not available anymore, but I did have to mention that's one of the things I used to love getting at Erewhon. And they also have a gluten-free pasta that is the best gluten-free pasta I've ever tasted, store-bought.
What is
So
that?
it's in the refrigerated section, and it's called Manini's.
Mini?
And Manini's, Manini.
Okay.
And it is just tastes like regular pasta. It's so delicious. And then I would say for my last product that I love would probably be, oh, okay, you're going to kill me for this one because it's $20 for a loaf of bread. But, you know, we being gluten-free is kind of a big thing in our house because my husband has all these food sensitivities. And so a lot of us just end up eating gluten-free because it's easier. There is a gluten-free sourdough by Cocoa Bakes. And sometimes they sell that at Erewhon, but it's best just to go through her website. And to be honest with you, anything she makes is ridiculously delicious. But she nailed it with the gluten-free sourdough. It's between her and Justa, but you can't ever get the Justa one because it's always sold out. So Cocoa Bakes, you can kind of just order. It is like the most, and I'm not saying it's just good for gluten-free. It's really delicious sourdough.
That's good because I know you're super, super healthy, and I should not be eating gluten and I don't eat it very often, but the one thing that to me, I've not been able to find nailed anywhere is this fucking bread. It's like the crackers. Okay. Pasta. Okay. Bread. It's like, it always has this, so I'm going to have to try that because it always has. And I think I'm from watching your stories, like your little open face sandwiches. So I'm really shocked you did not list the Costco crab meat because that is
Okay, Michelle, the Costco crab meat, do you want to know how much it is now?
oh,
It's $50 for
that
that.
can.
It used to be 20 something dollars. And so it has not been on my favorite list because my whole point of doing sushi at home was to be economical. And yes, it is now $50.
Shit. Yeah. Wow.
But it
Okay.
is, you're right. If you asked me what my 6 top favorite things were, I would have included that even with the new $50 hefty price tag.
Well, I mean, crab is not inexpensive, so I guess, but I remember you saying it's like, this is serious. Like, I couldn't believe it was from a can because of course I watched it and I went right to Costco and bought it and because we've been doing the make your own sushi at home and it's like, has been the best. Like there's a Japanese restaurant over in Torrance that we'll go to and now pick up everything, come back here. And it's like, I don't think it really makes it less than when we buy sushi at a restaurant because I buy so much. Because even Dave said, isn't this about the same that it is like when we order sushi? I'm like, but we're making it ourselves. So there.
Listen, you don't have a growing teenager boy, and then maybe you'd be saving money. If it was just Greg and I would say even, but it's him that really makes the ticket go way up because he just doesn't stop, especially when it comes to sushi. So I really did it when he started kind of getting into his teenage years, or preteen, I should say.
Okay. So I have to ask you a question because it was very limited. I loved when I saw that you put out a tabletop line. Are you going to be doing, because that potter, the person that you partnered with, that pottery is stunning. And it's like, it was up and it was gone so fast. And it's like, are you going to pursue tabletop anymore?
Well, thank you so much. I don't know if you know this, but the person that I did the collab with is Kim Gold, who is she was the founder of True Religion. So she is, like myself, a serial entrepreneur, and I loved doing a collaboration. I mean, I love collaborating with all women, fellow female entrepreneurs, but it was especially special because we worked together at Fred Segal, and it was just fun to come full circle both into our new industries. So that was a really fun project because I got to work with Kim. And yes, what she produces is she's so detail oriented, and her ceramics are such high quality that it was something that I could put out and really feel proud about. And I absolutely want to do more collabs in the home space, because a lot of what I share is about my home and how sacred the space is. And so there definitely will be more tabletop and some fun collabs coming up in the next year.
Good. Okay. So I always ask everybody, the last two questions are, because you're wearing a lot of hats and because you seem to be going a million miles an hour and with a personal life that goes a million miles, how do you and where do you find balance?
So I don't know that it's balance. I really oftentimes, because there's just no way for, I would be constantly just feel like I'm failing. It's just finding harmony. So it's really like what I'm learning as, you know, in my 40s is to almost embrace the imbalance and just know that some days I am not going to be able to make it to, you know, check every single thing off my list. And so I will say that I now am finding peace in knowing that things are not going to get checked off. I'm not going to be able to get back to every email. And the one thing I do prioritize is my well-being. So the way that I honor that is through ritual. And my rituals never, ever, ever waver. So my day will always start, even if it's with a very short meditation and just taking 10 deep breaths and lighting my Palo Santo and just saying, you know, setting my intention for the day. And my day always ends that way. And those are the ways that I find harmony in my life. I don't know that it's necessarily balance, but the ritual is something that never wavers.
I love that. Have you heard of the line called United Other?
I haven't.
Okay, you have to look it up. Ellen is this beautiful woman who created this. It's I've got a piece of it. It is braided incense rope that's
Oh
dipped.
my gosh, that's beautiful.
And then she does these kits where they are fragrant intention papers, and you write your intention on the paper and then you light it, and the belief is prayers go up in smoke. So she has, and I love her ritual every morning is that every morning she gets up and she pours her elders a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and she has tea and coffee
That's
with them.
beautiful.
I mean, you have to, her interview is coming up in a couple weeks, but she is just, you have to follow her on Instagram. She is so you, as far as like what I can see you believing and living and embodying as far as the spirituality. But her product is insane. And I met her because one of my stores carries her, and she just is the most lovely person. But her products and her spiritual practice that she does every morning, I was like, I really wish I did something like that. I don't. I have my own little practices I do, but the idea of every morning the Palo Santo and a meditation, or serving coffee to your elders and sitting in prayer and listening to the messages that they may or may not bring you. But I think that is so beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. And honestly, it's the only way, because I was always chasing the balance. And it was, you know, I had that aha moment where I was like, oh, it's never going to be a perfect balance, because it's just, my life is just, there's just too much. And so that's when I, you know, was like, okay, but what can I really count on every single day to be the same? And that was it. So I'm happy that you turned me on to her products, because I'm always looking for beautiful products like that to either gift or
Oh, they're some of the
myself.
most stunning scented. They're beautiful. You'll love, I mean, like I said, like her intention kits and just everything is just so bedspoke. It's beautiful.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to check it out.
And my last question is, where do you see KimChiAvocado in 10 years?
Well, I shared earlier that I would love to start with some books. So I see KimChiAvocado in 10 years with a few books, whether they be lifestyle driven or cookbooks under our belt. And I hope that our studio is thriving and still employing a team of incredible women, because that is another part of our ethos, is that we're a team of, strong women. And actually right now we're all women of color, which is also really
I
exciting.
love that.
I don't think that, I mean, we didn't do it intentionally, but I also don't think it was an accident. So I hope that we can continue to build on that foundation in 10 years, be a larger company that's really known for empowering women and being a place for, women to come and feel like they're a part of a brand that is doing something great for this world, and building our continuing to build our community in a thoughtful and positive way.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time with us. I really appreciate it. You're always so inspiring. And again, like for those of you listening, you have to follow her Instagram. It is visual eye candy. I mean, it literally eye candy.
No pun intended. Well, thank you so much. I didn't get an opportunity to say this earlier, but I am inspired by you and the beauty that you create. So it was a real honor to be here, because I feel exactly the same way about your craft and what you've done. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Okay.